Congressman, thank you very much for joining us. I want to start with you on something else the president was asked about a moment ago, and that is Paul Manafort. He was asked if he would pardon Paul Manafort. He says he hasn't thought about that at this time. He also said that he feels very badly for Paul Manafort and that it is a sad situation. Do you have a response?
Well, it appears to many of us that Paul Manafort was a serial criminal who was convicted, among other things, of defrauding the United States of America. And so it's not clear to me why he should feel bad for Paul Manafort. But the broader question is just making sure that we can continue to allow Bob Mueller to complete his investigation, write a report, and make sure that that report is communicated to the American people so that the American people can figure out, was there collusion, was there a conspiracy between the Trump campaign, Russian spies, and links in order to undermine our democracy, sell out the presidency, and artificially place Donald Trump at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
How are you going to ensure that the American public is going to be able to see the report or the substance that they need to see of the report? This is going to be up to the Attorney General.
Well, two things. Tomorrow, Chairman Jerry Nadler of the Judiciary Committee in a bipartisan way will be leading a resolution making it clear that the perspective of the United States House of Representatives is that once this report has been completed, its contents, whether it exonerates the president or implicates the president, should be shared with the American people. We also have the ability, if appropriate, and if the situation calls for it, to use our subpoena power to make sure that the report is presented to Congress, and then Congress can make that decision to present it to the American people.
A lot of congressmen and women, when they were asked about how they felt about impeachment, a lot of you guys would come back to reporters and say, we need to wait and see what happens with the special counsel. That was the refrain from a number of members of Congress. That refrain is now not really on the table any longer. I mean, Nancy Pelosi the other day said that impeachment is off the table unless something overwhelming is revealed, and it's bipartisan. That does leave room for potentiality for impeachment if the Mueller report is damning enough, but it certainly raises the bar really high. What do you think? Are you on? Do you agree with her? Do you think that that was a good idea to take it off the table for now?
I strongly agree with Speaker Pelosi that we should proceed with caution with respect to impeachment. First of all, the Constitution makes clear that this is something that should only be pursued where there are extraordinary circumstances brought to life by treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. I think what Speaker Pelosi did was to articulate an appropriate standard. She said that effectively the case for impeachment must be compelling, the evidence presented must be overwhelming, and the public sentiment with respect to impeachment must be bipartisan in nature. That's a high bar, but it's also a very reasonable standard.
The president is welcoming this. He's happy about it. He feels like he is being vindicated by it. We have his tweets. We can put them up on the screen. He says, I greatly appreciate Nancy Pelosi's statement against impeachment, but everyone must remember the minor fact that I never did anything wrong. The economy and unemployment are the best ever. Military and vets are great, and many other successes. How do you impeach a man who is considered by many to be the president with the most successful first 2 years in history, especially when he has done nothing wrong and impeachment is for high crimes and misdemeanors? Do you agree with the president's sentiment? He's happy about this.
Of course not. That's not a serious statement, and much of what comes out of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue is not serious. We're going to continue to focus on our affirmative, forward-looking, kitchen table, pocketbook, issue-oriented agenda. And in many ways, that's the point that Speaker Pelosi was making. We were elected not on impeachment. We didn't run on impeachment, and we are not going to govern anchored in impeachment. We're going to govern with a focus on lowering health care costs, particularly as it relates to driving down the high cost of life-saving prescription drugs. We promised the American people we're going to work to increase with a focus on a real infrastructure plan. We're going to keep our focus there. And of course, we're going to clean up corruption and bring our democracy to life. We already passed H.R. 1, which is the most consequential electoral reform bill perhaps ever to pass the House of Representatives, and we're going to keep our eye on the prize.
And Mr. Jeffries, how do you feel about the grounding of the 737 MAX 8s?
It was definitely an appropriate decision. There are two questions that need to be answered. One, is there a technical flaw in this model of aircraft that in two instances over the last 6 months has effectively caused these planes to nosedive? The FAA and other experts are going to have to try to get to the bottom of that. The other question that needs to be resolved is, do the pilots have appropriate information and have they been given sufficient training to navigate through the technical challenges that the 737 MAX 8s apparently present? Until those two questions are resolved, it's certainly appropriate that these planes have been grounded.
Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. Congressman, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Katie.
And we'll be right back.